Hello, everybody. BCT Webster here. Today I'm going to talk about Demon Slayer. Specifically, my final thoughts on Demon Slayer as a whole. Now that the manga finally wrapped up, I want to give my final thoughts on the whole series. What I like, what I didn't like, and all that stuff. I will also be talking a little bit about the anime and where it's going. So let's begin. So Demon Slayer, I got into Demon Slayer, I want to say like over a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. I remember I heard about it first when I was in Comic-Con, and I went to a panel, a Shonen Jump panel, and they were talking about Demon Slayer, and it just sounded like a pretty interesting manga to get into and read. And they also announced that they were going to start showing the series, and I remember they showed a clip, for those of you who haven't seen the anime, little spoiler alert, where Inosuke fights Tanjiro, and Tanjiro hits him hard and the mask falls off, and they show that he's a beautiful man. And that really got me intrigued, and I started watching the anime because it seemed like a pretty funny one, and I was blown away. So much so that something that only happens with a few series, like, again, I wasn't that big of a manga reader until maybe like 2 years ago, and no, like 3 years ago, and that was only really One Piece that I read. And I started reading more manga, and the way I will get into manga is I will watch the anime, and I will binge watch the whole thing, catch up to the latest episode, and I want more. And the only way to get more is read the manga, and then I'll binge read the manga until I catch up to the latest chapter, and then I'll just follow it weekly. It's it's quite the ordeal. Anyway, so that's what I did with Demon Slayer. I caught up to it when I think it was on episode 8, and I just started reading the manga, and I was surprised. There was several hundred chapters. And I got really into it, and I read it, and I really, really loved it. It was such a good manga until it wasn't, and I'll get to that. So okay, so first thoughts about good positive things. Oh my god, first good things about the series, in my opinion, was the villains. The bad guys. Even the most despicable of the demons always had some humanity in them. They were always so complex, and no matter how many atrocities they committed, the author always found a way to humanize them, especially at the end when they were dying. And then the way Tanjiro will empathize with them, it was always very touching. It was very, very beautiful. Like, what's one that really got to me is when, I forget his name. Okay, yeah, one of the demons, Akasa, he was such an evil person, but then towards the end, when they actually went into his backstory, it was so heartbreaking. It was, and I know this is not exactly the right word because we've probably never been through the same situation, but it was in a sort of way relatable to the part that he suffered like a human, like we did, because he was human at one point, and they made that suffering feel so real because the artist contrasted it with his joy, the joy that he felt. He suffered, he persevered, he worked hard, he was happy, and then it was all taken away. When it was all taken away so cruelly, at least I understood why he felt the way he felt, and I understood how turning into a demon only amplified those negative emotions that he had. And that's just something that I feel this author did very, very well. And that was something that I really enjoyed about this series, you know. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this series was its humor. Oh man, the humor. There was a lot of good humor in this. And I gotta say, a big part of it had to do with the dynamic between Inosuke, Zenitsu, Tanjiro, and Nezuko. You know, Tanjiro being the naive, kind-hearted person, Zenitsu being the cowardly, somewhat sleazebaggy, but with a good heart person. Inosuke being the abrasive, aggressive, pretty much idiot, but yet still best boy character that he is. And Nezuko, you know, being the cute, almost like the baby of the group, you know, that everybody's trying to watch over. And she has such an innocence, which is a complete contrast to the fact that she's a demon, you know. She's a demon, but she also has this sense of innocence around her. And I think that's a good play on the whole character. But just the interactions between the three, you know, how they're all so different, and even though they're all good people at heart, you know, and they're always trying to do the right thing, they go about it in completely different ways because of their personality, their upbringing and stuff. And that just, you know, opened a lot for a lot of very comedic moments. And then also you had to go into the Demon Slayers themselves, you know, like I just said, like there were those three ones, which were, you know, Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, who are very, very different people. And then you have like the actual Hashiras, which were all completely different, you know. They all had a bit of a smugness to them, especially when you first meet them in the beginning. You know, they're all kind of smug about, they have this air of arrogance around them. Except when it comes to the Master. Which again, the Master, another very good character that was very well written. And I gotta say, my favorite Hashira. That's a tough one. Man, I gotta say, my favorite Hashira has to be a tie. It's a tie between Shinobu and Giyu. Badassery, I gotta say Himejima. Top, hands down, you know. He's blind and he's the most powerful, and just the way, oh man. And his fight, the fight he had at the end, oh man, that was glorious. Though we never really saw his personality all that much. But Shinobu and Giyu, like, I really like them because, especially like in the first one, in the first time we meet them both, not just Giyu, but when we meet them both together, when it's when Shinobu's trying to go after Nezuko and Giyu's trying to stop her, like, you get a sense of the dynamic between all the Hashiras, how, you know, they often bump heads and all that stuff. And you know, it goes to show continuously throughout, whenever they keep showing the Hashiras, how different they all are, how differently they think. And I thought Shinobu's character, when she was first introduced, was very, very interesting. How she said she would let the, you know, she would let the demon live, but she had to first pay for her sins and everything. And she had like this friendly face. And then when we get the big reveal of when Tanjiro is with her, and he says, "Why are you always angry?" And then they reveal the backstory of what happened with Shinobu's older sister and all of that, you know, like that tragedy. Or why she became a demon slayer and why she always has a smile on her face. You know, that was some really well developed character. Giyu, on the other hand, like, I liked him because he was a strong silent type. I really like those kinds of characters, you know. But at first, you know, throughout the first half of the story, you know, like, I didn't really care too much for him because he seemed really obnoxious. Everything he did was like, dude, why? You know, like he just seemed like he just seemed obnoxious. You know, he always kept Tanjiro in the dark and never really gave him a reason why. But then later on in the story, when they discovered that when Giyu says that he doesn't feel like he's a Hashira, how he wants, and he's upset that Tanjiro's learning fire breathing. I mean, the sun dance, sun breathing. Is it sun breathing? Fire breathing? Forgot. It's been a while since I read it. But yeah, because he wanted Tanjiro to be the next water pillar. And when he just breaks down and says that he feels like a failure because the ghost of the Demon Slayer apprentice who died and trained Tanjiro died because he was saving Giyu, and ever since then he carried that chip on his shoulder. You know, that gave him so much humanity, so much depth, you know, and it just made it that in that instant, all his obnoxiousness, all his lack of character growth, and all that stuff was just fixed in that one instance, and that was amazing. You know, that was really good writing in my opinion. Ah, man, yeah, this was a good series. Like, I really enjoyed it. But like I said earlier, I really enjoyed it until I didn't. And here's where I didn't enjoy it. It was in the hold on, let me count. So we have the, when it gets in that one, then we Sanjiro, and that one, then they go on the train, then they go to the brothel, and then they go. All right, so right after the arc, I forgot which arc it is, but right after the arc where they go to the village where all the Nichiren swords are being made, and they get attacked by demons. That's when stuff started getting problematic with me. Because at the end of it, and again, spoiler alert, which if you were watching this and I say my final thoughts on the whole series, should just be a given that there's going to be spoilers. So at the end of it, you know, Nezuko conquers the sun. She's able to walk in the sun without burning up, and everything just kicked into high gear. And the next arc, which I would say is the final arc, just felt like it felt rushed but dragged on, if that makes any sense. I think the best way I could compare it to is and for those of you who have seen it, please don't get too triggered, it felt like season 8 of Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones. You know, like it felt like they were just like the author was just trying to get this series over with, you know, and they rushed it. Like, everything felt rushed, you know, killing of when they killed the master, you know, and then afterwards all the fights with all the upper demons, you know, that really kind of upset me that they all fought at the same time, whereas we've been dealing with one or two at a time previously. You know, like, I like that pace. That pace made a lot more sense, you know, and I felt they could have really developed all those fights more, because at that point we're getting introduced to them, giving their whole backstory, and then they were dead within a few chapters on themselves. And then the fight scenes, oh my god, like, there's a difference between the anime and the manga. I understand that. And I will say this, you know, the fight scene drawings are not the best in Demon Slayer. They're not the best I've seen. They really are not. The animations in the anime for Demon Slayer are some of the best that I've seen. And maybe that's where some of my criticism and bias comes in, because I watched the anime before the manga, and you just can't compare. But it also seemed like some of the fight scenes were just being dragged on, especially in the final fight against Musan. It kind of reminded me of watching the anime Dragon Ball Z when they're just standing around and nothing's happening. It just felt like, Muzan was flailing around his arms and the other guys were just blocking and nothing was happening. And in the background, we'll be getting a little bit of backstories on the other Hashiras. And the thing for me that was really disappointing is that early on in that arc, I got the feeling, and I don't know if this is true, but I got the feeling that the author was just ready to be done with the series. The way she would kill a bunch of characters just always had a sense of finality. Like when she killed, like the master, that one, even though I didn't like, I felt like it could have used a little bit more development. It could have been done a lot more gracefully. But that was a good death. But then you start getting into like Shinobu and all the other Hashiras, and it just felt really unceremoniously. It felt like she was just killing them off because she was already done with the story. And I didn't like that. Like I really felt that was such a disservice. Like there was like the whole last arc just felt really rushed and kind of ruined the experience for me. It really did. And then the last part, oh man, like again, maybe it was just the fact that I was already disappointed at how the series was ending. I didn't like how it was rushed and how I felt dragged on at times. But when Tanjiro finally defeats Musan, and he basically turns him into a demon, and then Nezuko comes in and she gets in there like she's already cured, and she jumps in front of him so that he bites her first, and because he bit her first, he turns back into human. That's such an ex machina. I did not like it. There was no real reason. It didn't really add much to anything. It just felt that the reason why is because they wanted Nezuko to have some kind of impact in the final battle and the final climax of the thingy, but it was done so unceremoniously. It was done so sloppily. It was just very sloppy, like the ending. I did not like it at all. And then the last chapter, oh my goodness. In my opinion, again, maybe some of you liked it, but I personally didn't. For me, that last chapter was completely unnecessary. Like, I get last chapters are meant to, wrap up loose ends and everything and show like how everybody lived happily ever after, but we don't really get that. It's implied that they live happily ever after because we're like several generations after the events, and I'm guessing they're their descendants, but we don't know what happened to Tanjiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke. Like, we don't know what happened after them. We don't know how they grieved the fallen Hashiras or how they commemorated them or anything like that, we just skip forward. That's it. It's like it was completely unnecessary. They would have ended on the previous chapter, I would have been okay, but they added that and I expected something, because they said, oh, that's the final chapter. I'm like, okay, I'm expecting something, maybe something that would wrap up something. I don't know. I was waiting for something and I got something I didn't want. I did not know what I wanted, but I know sure as hell that's not what I wanted, and that really upset me. Again, I loved the series up until that point where the final arc started, because after that whole final arc just felt so rushed. And I get the feeling the reason why the author rushed this was because they didn't want it to turn into Naruto or One Piece or Black Clover, where it just keeps going on and on and on. I don't think they ever expected it to get this big or this popular and run for this long. Because honestly, I could have seen this series run for at least a good 2 more years, 3 more years. But they didn't, like the author did such a good job of building this world, creating all these characters, this history, and it doesn't really get addressed that much, at least for me, who loves really intricate and deep stories, I felt unsatisfied. I felt a little bit cheated. It's like you tease me, but then you don't give me the treat. I don't know. The one thing I do hope is, because this thing is very popular, and again, all that, well, everything that I didn't like still doesn't detract from what I did like. Despite all of that, despite me not being happy at all with the last arc or how it ended or anything, I still really enjoyed this series. I really love it, and I am gonna keep watching the anime. See, and this is where I want to talk about the anime, is that I really do hope that when they get to the final arc, they address some of the pacing issues I was talking about, and develop the stories a little bit further, and really fix all the combat. Not make it seem as dragged out as it seemed in the manga. Maybe condense some of those chapters where it's just like 3 chapters of fighting, and it's just panel after panel that doesn't really add anything. It's just like sword swinging and stuff like that. Maybe they could condense all those into like one episode. Yeah. Sorry. I've been meaning to rant about this for a while, but yeah, like I said, like, I really love Demon Slayer. I did not like how it ended. I wish they would have done something better, but they didn't, and who knows. Well, at least it's not as bad as Hunter x Hunter. Anyways, yeah, so thanks for tuning in on this episode. Thanks for tuning in on this video. I hope you guys liked it. Give me your thoughts. Like, what do you guys think? Where do you guys stand on how Demon Slayer ended on the manga and all the issues that I addressed? Let me know in the comments down below. I can take the hate. I got some pretty thick skin. So like this video, and please don't forget to subscribe so you guys could see more content that I'll be bringing out. Again, I'm trying really hard to bring out more regular content. Thank you. Bye bye.